Welcome to Breaking Bread, where good food comes with no stress, no fluff, it's just real flavor. I'm here to show you how to cook meals that taste amazing without overthinking it. Whether you're a beginner or you're just tired of takeout, let's make something that you actually want to eat. Hit the subscribe button, tap the bell, and let's turn your kitchen into your favorite spot to eat. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my kitchen, man. And today for episode 2, we'll be making smothered chicken with cabbage, seasoned rice, and some black beans. So if you're looking for a good dinner to cook on Sunday, something that's gonna fill you up, then it's a meal you need to make. All right, so let's get into the ingredients. First off, you're gonna start off with your chicken. I use chicken legs, or you can use chicken thighs, or you can use chicken breasts, but I wouldn't recommend you using chicken breasts because chicken breasts do tend to dry out. So I don't think that would necessarily be my chicken of choice for this meal, but because you are smothered in gravy, if you prefer chicken breast, you can use that as well. All right, then you need to get you some cabbage, some white rice, some garlic. Then you need to get your peppers, 1 whole onion. Also get you some green onion, flour, some black beans, and chicken broth. And of course, whatever seasonings that you normally have in your cabinet. I'll tell you some of the seasonings that I have as well as I'm making the food. All right, so we're gonna start off by prepping our cabbage first. We're gonna cut the end or the butt of the cabbage off. And what I do is I'll take the whole cabbage and put it to the side. So what I like to do is I like to peel off the first 4 or 5 layers of leaves on the cabbage. And then I like to wash them thoroughly. And I'm going to roll them up just like this. If you've ever cooked collard greens, cabbage, turnip greens, any green, if you want to get it in strip form, then you just roll it up like this, like a burrito or like whatever you be rolling, you roll it up like this. Once you get done all the way through the end, you'll be able to pull the pieces apart and it'll come into shreds. Then we'll take the shredded cabbage and we'll put in a prepping bowl to the side until we're ready to cook the cabbage. Now for the next part of the prep, we're going to chop up our garlic. When you're getting ready to cut up your garlic, you want to smash the garlic first. The reason why you want to smash the garlic first is because it breaks down the cell wall of the garlic. Essentially, it helps release the flavor and the aroma that you get from garlic. So if you ever see anybody chopping up garlic and you see them smash it first, they smash it first because it pretty much activates the garlic. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop up our garlic because we're going to use that in various parts of our meal. Once we finally diced the garlic, we're going to take the garlic and we're going to push to the side. As you can see, I am pushing the garlic to the side with my knife. Rule of thumb, you never want to do this, especially if it's knife side down. That's why I flip it up and I use the back of the knife because you don't want to dull your knife because you're scraping it across your cutting board. So just rule of thumb, if you're ever in a position where you have to scrape something across and you only have your knife, use the back side of your knife instead of the front side of your knife so that you're not dulling your knife by doing so. Now for the next prep item, we're going to prep our green onion. You want to finely chop your green onion just because it is a garnish, so you don't want huge chunks of green onion on top of your dish. And also too, I will take some of the green onion and put inside of my gravy. So you want to make sure that the pieces are fine enough to where they're not interfering with the texture of your dish. Once the green onions are all chopped up, you just want to push those to the side to be used at a later time. Okay, for the next step in our prep, we're going to season our chicken. Before I season my chicken, the first step that I do is I take a fork and I poke holes in the chicken. The reason why I do so is because it helps enhance the flavor and tenderness of the chicken. Reason being is because the holes let marinades, brines, or seasoning soak deeper into the meat and not just sit on the surface of the meat. And it also helps distribute the seasoning inside of the meat, especially for thicker cuts of chicken like chicken breast. Piercing the meat speeds up how fast the flavor gets in, so you don't need to marinate the chicken as long. So before I put any seasoning on my chicken, I usually just take a fork, I poke a couple of holes through it just to make sure that I can get the seasoning not only outside of the chicken, but I can also get the seasoning inside of the chicken as well. Once we've completed poking holes in the chicken, now we're going to season the chicken. I first start off with some fine sea salt. Then after the sea salt, I come with my complete seasoning. You know I gotta have me some complete. Then I come with my dash table blend seasoning. Then I gotta have my sazon. You know you can't season chicken without having a little sazon. You gotta have that little sazon on there for that flavor. Then we come with some garlic powder. Then we come with that dash original seasoning. After that, you know we gotta put a little chicken bouillon on there. So put a little chicken bouillon on there, which has always been interesting to me because it's like I'm making chicken taste like chicken. I don't really know. That's just a me thing. Once you have put your first coat of seasoning on your chicken, you want to thoroughly mix the chicken in. You want to mix the chicken around to make sure that seasoning gets on all sides of the chicken. As you can see, as I'm mixing the chicken, there are parts that still don't have seasoning on it. So if you were to put the chicken inside of the frying pan or oven right now, you would have parts of the chicken that wouldn't be seasoned because not all sides of the chicken has flavor. And the way seasoning works is you're only going to taste seasoning where it is on the meat. So if you only season the outside of the chicken and the skin falls off, then the inside of the chicken won't have any seasoning on it because there's no seasoning there. So rule of thumb when you are seasoning meat is that wherever the seasoning is, that's where the flavor is going to be. So you want to make sure that there you have seasoning on all sides of your chicken. Okay, so now that we're done with the prepping process, the first thing you want to do is you want to put some oil inside of the pan and let that heat up, because what we're about to do is we're going to sear our chicken. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the chicken is brown on both sides. And I would say usually cook the chicken on both sides for about 5 to 7 minutes. You don't necessarily want to cook the chicken all the way through because you're going to take the chicken out once it browns, and you're going to put it in a pan and put the gravy over top of it and put it in the oven, and it'll finish cooking throughout there. So you don't want to overcook it because then you'll dry out your chicken and then the outside will be moist and the inside will be dry. But searing the chicken before you put it in the oven does do a couple of things to the dish that's important. It locks in moisture for the meat, keeping the chicken juicy while you cook it in the oven. Also, while the chicken is seared inside of the pan, the bits left in the pan after seasoning is what you call fond. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take the fond, you'll use that inside of your gravy, and that'll add richness and flavor to your gravy. So it's been about 5 to 7 minutes. We flip it over. You see how you get that brown golden texture. You just want to make sure that the seasoning is locked into the outside of the meat. And with us poking holes into the chicken, you also get some of that flavor that's inside of the chicken as well. You want to take the chicken out and you want to put it on a baking dish to the side. Now, as you can see right here at the bottom of the pan, this is what I referenced earlier as to what we call fond. This is the drippings and seasonings that's left from frying the chicken in the pan. What you're going to do is put some butter in the pan, and what the butter is going to do is it's going to deglaze the pan. So then it'll pretty much take all of those seasonings that's stuck to the bottom of the pan, and the butter will kind of get it off the bottom of the pan, and you'll be able to mix it around. You drop some garlic in the pan as well with the butter, and it's going to just give the pan some extra flavor. And as you can see, the butter is deglazed in the pan. You drop you some onions in there as well so that you can caramelize your onions as you prepare to make your roux for your gravy. So once your onions are caramelized and your butter's melted and you've gotten all that seasonings from the bottom of the pan, you then put in your flour. You're going to mix your flour around with your butter, and it's going to create a roux. This is what you call a roux. It's pretty much a flour mixture mixed in with the seasonings, the drippings from the bottom of the pan, the fresh garlic and onion. The thing about it is you want to mix this up, but you don't want to let it burn. Once you see that the flour is about 80 to 90% mixed in, there's not necessarily any excess white flour around inside of the pan, then you want to come and add your chicken broth. So what your chicken broth is going to do is it's going to create the compound of your gravy. And the rule of thumb when making gravy is the more moisture that you add to the gravy, the looser that it gets. Now, rule of thumb, when it comes to making your gravy, you want to pour small amounts of chicken broth in at a time. You do not want to pour all of your chicken broth into the pot, because the rule of thumb is you'll always be able to add more versus take out. So you could always add more moisture, but if you wanted to take out moisture, that will require you to add more flour, and that'll pretty much complicate the process. So what you want to do is you just want to pour a little bit of chicken broth in at a time, and you just want to continue to stir. This is the process where you're going to be doing a lot of stirring. So you want to stir it around, and as you can see, as your chicken broth gets mixed in with your roux, then you're pretty much thinning out the roux, and that's what's going to give you your gravy. So you'll continue to do this process, and essentially you'll do this until you get the gravy to your preferred thickness. Some people prefer a thicker gravy, some people prefer a thinner gravy. I kind of like my gravy in the middle. I don't necessarily like it too thick, but I don't want it runny as well. Another thing that I recommend too is throughout this process, taste the gravy, because it might need a little bit more seasoning. As you can see, I put some dashed table blend in there, and I also put some chicken bouillon. So don't be afraid to taste the gravy and season it if need be. But you always want to taste the food throughout the process, because you don't want to make it too salty. And so the thing about cooking as well is it's like a big science project. There is an addition and subtraction when it comes to cooking. If you make something too salty, then you put sugar in it, because sugar counteracts salt. If you have something too sweet, you put salt in it, because salt counteracts the sugar. So that's kind of the same thing with your gravy. If you put too much moisture in it, then you want to add more flour. If you have too much flour, then you want to add broth, or you want to add water to loosen it out. So the good thing about cooking is there is ways to fix certain items that you're making. You just have to know what to add in it and what to put inside of your dish to help it get to the desired taste, texture, or look that you're going for. Once you got the gravy to your desired consistency, then you want to let it cook for about 2 or 3 minutes. And then what I do is I add some green onions to it, and I put that to the side. Before I put it on the chicken, I am going to saute some onions and peppers. So I put a little butter in the pan, I insert my onions, I insert my peppers, I season them up, I saute them a little bit. I take the onions and peppers and I put them in my chicken, and then I take the gravy and I pour on top of the chicken. So once I've spread the gravy all over the chicken, then I always like to just save a little bit of chicken broth to put at the bottom of the pan. And then I'll cover the chicken up with a little bit of foil, and it is ready to go in the oven. While my chicken is in the oven, we are going to start to prepare our cabbage. I start off by putting some butter at the bottom of the pan. Then I drop my onions in, my peppers, and I let them saute for a little bit, throw a little seasoning on it, some garlic, and then I start to insert my cabbage. I put about half the pot worth of cabbage in there, just because, as you know, anything that's green, whether it's collard greens, cabbage, spinach, they all cook down. So I wasn't able to get all of the cabbage inside of the pan at one time. So I put half in there. I let it cook down, and then I inserted the second half. I then came back with my seasoning, and I seasoned it, of course, with some complete chicken bouillon, table blend, gave it a nice stir. And also too, one thing you definitely want to add to your cabbage is some vinegar. Once the cabbage is cooked for about 15 minutes, I give it a nice stir, and then I put the top back on it, and I let it cook for about another 15 minutes. As you can see, the cabbage is now ready, And my rule of thumb for cabbage is some people prefer a crunch in their cabbage, some people prefer soft cabbage. So that I'll let you decide. That's to your own discretion as far as how soft you like your cabbage. Once the cabbage is done, we take the cabbage off and we transition to cooking our black beans. The black beans, I'm gonna take a little butter, melt at the bottom of the pan. Then I am going to drop in some diced onions and garlic. Let that cook down. Then I'll season it up. I let those saute for a minute, give it a good stir, and then I come in with my black beans, give it a good mix, and then I add some chicken bouillon cubes. I take 1 cube and I cut it up into 6 smaller cubes and just spread it throughout the black beans. And then I come with some chicken broth as well. And then I give it a good stir and I let that sit on the stove for about a good 15 minutes. I come back and I add a couple of drops of lemon juice. And then I sprinkle just a little bit of sugar. That's just my thing, just to make sure that it's not too salty and it pretty much neutralizes the flavor. Once the black beans have sat on the stove for about 15 to 20 minutes, I open it up again, give it a good stir, and then I set it to the side. While we were making the sides, I wanted to show you what the smothered chicken looks like at its halfway point. You are going to take the chicken and put in the oven at 375 to 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. As you can see, this is the halfway point. The gravy is nice and loose. And what you want to do is you want to baste your chicken. So you want to take some of that gravy and you pretty much just want to smother it over the top. You want to make sure, as you can see right there, the chicken is falling off the bone. You just want to continue this process because you want to make sure that the meat stays moist and not dry out. Then the last thing that we'll do while we're waiting for the chicken to finish is we'll make our rice. And a lot of people have trouble making rice, but I'll show you a way to ensure that your rice comes out perfect every time. What you want to do is you want to pour your chicken broth or water into the pan. Then you put some bay leaves inside of the water. After the bay leaves, then you want to take 1 bouillon cube, chop up into 6 cubes and place that into the water. Then you come back with your complete table blend, garlic powder, give that a stir. Cause like I said, every item that we cook has to build its own flavor profile. So you want to make sure that there is a flavor profile in every piece of your dish. Put a little butter in there just to make sure that the rice don't stick. Then I put my washed rice inside of the pot. Just like how I told y'all with the noodles, you want to immediately stir your rice as well once you put it in the pot because you don't want your rice to stick to the bottom or to itself. Then we're gonna put the top on it and we're going to let the rice cook until all the liquid is gone. So this is the tricky part when it comes to rice. What you want to do is you want to cook the rice down until all of the liquid is gone like this. But that does not mean the rice is cooked. What you want to do is once you get the rice like this, put a 1/4 cup of water on your rice and give it a stir, and you're going to put it on low and close the lid and let it finish cooking out. Once you put the lid on, you're going to let it sit for about 3 to 4 minutes and turn it off. Once you turn it off, just move it off of the eye that is on and leave it alone. Don't open it, don't do anything. This is the biggest issue that people have with rice is they open it too much. The rice is still cooking and you want to let it cook to its entirety because if you just take the rice out once the water is gone, it's not going to fully cook the whole grain of rice. So after about 15-20 minutes of just letting it sit without opening the lid, then as you can see, now you have fresh, fluffy, completely cooked rice. Once you get to this point, there's 2 things that you could do. If you want your rice to continue to cook more, then immediately put the lid back on and the steam and heat from the pot will still continue to cook the rice. But if the rice is to your liking and you want to dry out the rice, you take the lid off and that'll stop the cooking process. Then I go in with some parsley, I give it a stir, I take out the bay leaves, hit it with a little bit more parsley, little accent, if you know, you know, and there you have it. So then we got our fresh seasoned rice, cabbage, black beans, and smothered chicken. This is a good hearty meal to make on a Sunday. It's definitely gonna be one of your go-to meals. Try this recipe. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned because we got more recipes on the way. See you next time. We out.